You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short. And today I'm here with Kris Ward. Kris is a leading authority in building your business by building your team. Kris is the founder of the Win the Hour, Win the Day philosophy. She helps entrepreneurs create their WIN team. What is next team? So you can get your idea implementation and make your ambition come alive. After the loss of her husband, Kris returned to full-time work. As a marketing strategist, she was thrilled to see that her business had not only survived in her absence, but was thriving. Now she has completely changed landscape for entrepreneurs who are sharing successful practices that allowed her absence. Kris has been interviewed by one of the original sharks from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, the ABC's The Secret Millionaire, James Malinchak. She has also been featured on award-winning podcasts, radio, and TV shows, and now she's here on our show. I'm so excited to have you here today, Kris.
Thank you. I am truly excited to be here.
You've been around a lot, so thank you again for taking the time, because one of the things we ask you to do is to share your story of hope. And I know we were just talking about this, and I know that you have a powerful story. So do you want to share that with us today?
Sure. I guess to me, everything is hopeful. I just think there's always a reason to be happy and there's always a reason to be hopeful. So, more often than not, people pull out from me what they sort of feel the pieces of my story that were hopeful. So I guess I always struggle with what is my hopeful story, because when I was in it and when you're doing it, it was just living for me. So it wasn't that inspiring. It was just getting through it. Right. So I guess what I would say was where most people resonate with was the fact that when John was diagnosed, I was pulled away. He was diagnosed with colon cancer. I was pulled away from my business for about 2 years. And nobody knew of what I was going through. I didn't feel it would be good for business. Also, our mindset was very positive. So we felt that if the doctors were wrong, then we sat around crying, holding hands for 2 years. And if the doctors were right, we sat around our last 2 years crying, holding hands, and we didn't feel that served us. So aside from the business and chemo and all the appointments and surgeries and specialists, I also planned a lot of things, took him, back to England to see family he hadn't seen in 20 years, cousins and stuff, and had a lot of surprise adventures and a lot of fun that took planning and strategy. So that was, really, it was like I had 5 full-time jobs, but I enjoyed all of it. And my big thing with Win the Hour, Win the Day is, I do believe your business should support your life, not consume it, because I was present for him when the wins, truly every moment mattered. And I don't have any regret about where I was or where my energy was or where my attention was. And so that was truly a gift for me. So I'm not, I'm not sure how to navigate my own hopeful story, but that's the part that people sort of ask about the most, I guess.
By the way, I think that is beautiful, because when I was sick, I remember wanting to survive long enough to just create a memory. And here I am 9 years later, stringing those memories together. And I live in the moment. So it's like you saying, win the hour, win the day. It's those moments just it's brought me 9 years later, still here, creating those beautiful memories. So how did that move you into what you're doing now? I know that when I was reading your intro, you talked about showing back up at work and things thriving even without your presence or your 100% commitment to it.
Yeah, I mean, it really was shocking to me. And the big thing was, John was my biggest fan, by far. And he was always so enthusiastic about any of my accomplishments. So, when he was going through that, he was he saw how hard I worked and stuff. And he was like, oh my gosh, babe, is everything gonna be okay? And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. Now, I was pretty sure it's gonna be fine, but I don't know. I didn't have time to focus on that. If it wasn't gonna be fine, I would deal with that later. But if he saw me squirming and suffering, that would have gutted him, because he, saw what I had put into that project and stuff like that. But also, let's really be honest here. Aside from the grief and the emotion, I lost an income. So if I had returned to no business, that was not the time for me to craft a resume, try to be charming in interview, and, try to learn a new job. That would not have been a good use of my energy at that time after losing like your best friend. So it really, honestly, when I was in it, my priority was him and living in the moment and the now, and just doing what I could. And I was just so lucky when I returned, it was, beautifully intact, to the point that people were asking me, how did I navigate? How did I do that? And so as a marketing strategist, then I started working with my existing clients under the capacity of team building and running their business, because they said, well, if you could do all that, maybe you could get me down from 16 hours a day down, something livable, because, your business should support your life, not consume it. So that's kind of how it all unfolded.
So I love that you just talked about that, because the next question I had for you is to tell us a little bit on how you create a win team with your clients. Like, what does that look like?
Oh, that's a spectacular question. I wish I had a 10-part Netflix series for that one.
I wish you did too.
Let me tell you what it isn't, because this is a part that gets most people confused more often than not. So a win team to me is your what is next team, because you're really all entrepreneurs are trying to do really is get ideas to implementation. You get caught up in the busy work and the admin work, but really that's a job, and you left a job for a reason, and you didn't start a business just to run a business. So when you look at somebody, you've got some professional jealousy and how do they keep doing it? They're just getting ideas to implementation. That's it, right? So what I want to say to you, what isn't a win team, or people get confused, is having a VA is not a win team, right? That's just taking stuff off your desk and throwing it in somebody else's. When you have a team, what it does is it allows you, as you should be, primarily in the creation stage, getting ideas to implementation, amplifying your impact, having a bigger and bigger reach. So if you've written one book, you can write 3. If you have this podcast, you can reach a further audience with a bigger audience. There's just always stuff that you can be doing in the creation stage and not in the running the business stage. So a win team, and a part of that too is what I call building it on systems, saving yourself stress, time, energy, and money, is the infrastructure that win team leans on. So on average, my coaching clients tell me that they get 25 hours back a week the first month they work with us. So what happens is too many people think, okay, I've got a VA. So they take stuff off their desk and they throw it on whatever, Sarah or Ethel's desk, and all you're doing is moving stuff. But the reality is when you have a win team, they support you, you don't manage them. So it's not like you have another job, now I have to keep an eye on her and I have to manage her stuff. They really frankly manage you, you don't manage them. As well, their calendar should be getting more and more efficient and compressing so that they have creative rooms, so that they can come to you with what their zone of genius is and say, look, here's what I think we can do in this area, and bring something to you, and that amplifies what you're doing, because it is all about creation. So even your admin team, win team, they should have room in their calendar for their creation and their zone of genius, because it's going to lift you up. That whole saying, like a tide lifts all right, rising tide lifts all ships. That's exactly what your win team should do. And people too often get confused with rotating paperwork and just getting it off the desk, and that's not what it's about.
By the way, I love that. I will say that I worked with, because I believe that if you're building a business, you have to work with geniuses, right? That's 100%. What takes you to that next level. And one of the things I did was work with someone who taught me exactly what you're saying. So I invested in myself to get my time back. And I tell people all the time, like, who's your VA? I don't have a VA. I literally hire geniuses to do my podcast. And so, Alyssa, if you're hearing this, thank you. I hire geniuses to help put my magazine together. I put that out there, and they take it, like you said, from the thought process to implementing it and putting it out into the world. So it does give you back hours. And when you create that team, you think it's going to take an army, and it doesn't. When you pull them together and they're the right people with that in their genius zone, they get it done.
You brought up a really great point, because sometimes people get confused between like a VA and vendors. So I have also worked with very, people that were really successful on paper, like a podcast management company or different things. And they're making a lot of money, but what's happening is they're then hiring vendors to get work done. So like coaches, or along the lines, if you can visualize coaches or consultants or somebody to process all the, the podcasts or whatever. And a lot of money was going on the table because really they didn't create their own team. They were really hiring vendors. So sometimes that sounds very scary to people, or they do it when they're up against the wall, and then it costs more because they think they have a team, but what they have is vendors. So they're really outsourcing, right? And I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying there's a distinction there that you highlighted that I want to bring up. So that is one thing too, is when, understand what's the difference between a vendor and what's a win team. And the thing is, what I call the 3Ds, where people miss the boat the most, is damaging overhead, delayed income, and diminished opportunity. And whatever it is you do, let's say you could sell a package for $2,000. When you are busy doing admin work and just run busy work, I call it, we live in a world of copy and paste and pre and post production, always pre and post production work. And when you're doing that, that means obviously you're now really charging your company $2,000 because you could have brought in a new client or new package for $2,000. So you are the damaging overhead. So people think they're saving money by trying to do things themselves, but you're the damaging overhead. You're very expensive overhead because of your income potential. And then of course there is the delayed income, because you don't know what you didn't bring in because you're caught up in the busy work or the onboarding the last person. And so obviously we have no idea how much money you're behind on the delayed income. And then the diminishing opportunity. We've all heard that at some point. I'm sure you guys have too, where, oh, we wish you knew because we just hired somebody like that last week or last month, right? So there's just a lot of money that you're bleeding out that most people don't understand. But more than the money, the quality of life, self-care, vibrancy, starting your workday refreshed, leaving fresh, all that stuff, that's really where it pays off.
By the way, I'm very grateful to you for separating and just making that very distinct, really getting it to them that you're right about the vendors. What they do is they pass it off to VAs. So they're moving it from desk to desk. And I pride myself in working with mompreneurs, women who are staying home to build businesses. And I use Wounded Warriors. Like, they are amazing resource. They're geniuses, and they're not able to do the 9-to-5 job like before. And they love their jobs and what they're doing. And so I don't do any computer stuff because it's just boom for me. And they are great at it. So I started hiring Wounded Warriors.
You know what? And that's great. Wherever you get your talent, you pool from, excellent. Because my goal is always to be the dumbest in the room. Like, if I'm not, then I'm in the wrong room, right? And what I would say too is, when you have those people in play, you really want to understand to get more and more juice out of you and more freedom, so that you can create bigger and better and stronger things and really just get your message out. You just want to make sure you have what I call, toolkits or systems, so that everything is done. Like, we're constantly looking at something like, is it taking 10 steps? Let's get it down to 8. Let's get it down to 3. And then we can move over here and do something creative. And so many people think that is, like, I created the company, I have it all in my head. But businesses are not run on memory. Nobody hands somebody like an organ to get from here to Chicago Hospital and hand it to the FedEx guy and say, you've got the address, right? You're good. Like, so if that's what keeps, that running, then why can your little business not be way more efficient? It's not about restricting you. It's about, your mind is meant to create ideas, not to remember them. So if you have stuff, whatever those steps are, that you can be totally consistent on every time, then when you have a new idea, you can just drop it into the existing system. Versus back in the day, I know me and a lot of my clients would say, you think, oh, I have this great idea. And then you realize, oh, I had that great idea 4 months ago, but it's recycling because it fell off and then it came back, right? So there's things that, on a dime, that we can add to make something more interesting or more creative, or try something in our business, me and my coaching clients, because we have an infrastructure in play.
By the way, that infrastructure is so important, because how many people have you met that says, oh my gosh, that was my idea. I had that idea 6 months ago. And now somebody else has created it. And you're sitting back like, I thought of that like 6 months ago. And yet you didn't have the infrastructure to make it happen.
Correct. Or even on things that are much smaller than that, like much smaller. It could be something as simple like, when I hop on a podcast, I have a little checklist that I go through. And just last week, where I've recently moved, now the way I'm hardwired, if I'm uploading pictures from my phone into my computer, I have to connect to the Wi-Fi, but most of the time it's better for me to be hardwired, and I just click a button. And I was doing an interview and I looked, oh, there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi, it's fluttering, it doesn't need to be because I'm hardwired. So I added it to my little pre-show list. check, am I hardwired of Wi-Fi? That will never happen to me again. I just go down the list. It seems like a little thing, but when you're talking to somebody and there's a delay and you think, oh my gosh, I'm on their show and there's some hiccup and you're like, am I going to lose the Wi-Fi? And it's totally unnecessary. That's a distraction. So now it's just one of 6 or 7 things I check before I go on a podcast, but I'll never have to remember that again. It's done. Consistency allows me to, show up my best. So it's all kinds of little things that just free up your mind so you can really do the stuff that makes you special and unique and get it out there.
So I've been so excited to have you on the show. I think you're kind of a genius. And so one of the questions I have for you is like,
this is being well documented, everybody. I'm kind of a genius. All right. I want a video clip.
Genius. She's like right in my zone, right? This is talking my talk. So what would be 3 big mistakes you think most people are making with the use of their time in their business? Now, I know you went over a couple of them, like seriously, if you're doing the work behind setting appointments, pushing paper, you're losing money and you are the one costing your business time, money. What are 3 things that you think are the biggest mistakes we're making?
Okay. To be funny, I would honestly tell you, they don't have a team, they don't have a team, they don't have a team. That would be honestly it. And I can't drive that home enough. However, let me throw you one other thing that most people don't talk about. And we do talk about this in my book, Win the Hour, Win the Day. One of the things that most people don't do correctly, and we're leaning now into productivity, but what I would say to you is your calendar is your time bank account. That's it. There is no more time on that calendar. That's it. And most people try to outrun the calendar or they put outside appointments on there, but not their own work. So that's like saying, like sometimes people will say to me, I don't put that on my calendar. I do it every day. I don't have to remember it. It's not about remembering. That's like saying my car payment comes out of my bank every month. So don't worry about it. I don't count it. But the money's gone. Just because it comes out every month doesn't mean you don't count that lost money. So what happens is a lot of people show up to start their workday and they think they have 8, 9, 10 hours and they might have 5 because they're not counting things like email. They're not counting the stuff they do every day. So from a productivity position, most people do not understand they have this really powerful tool that the most richest people in the world are using. And it's just a Google Calendar and it's free. So there's fundamental stuff that we help, our group coaching clients with and stuff like that, just to get that part nailed down so that then you can be the best leader and you can bring on the best team. Because hiring a team, it's not rocket science. It's not. But I did spend years learning how to hire, how to recruit, hire, onboard, put systems in play so that when I hire someone, they get excited when they see, oh, we can really succeed here and be creative because there's all this infrastructure that protects us and we just get that stuff done and move on to the fun work. So, there's a whole bunch of things that I think as entrepreneurs, you just try to outrun the clock and you have this mindset that's being frankly shoved down your throat that you should be grinding it out and all this stuff. But I'm here to tell you that which does not kill you makes you tired. And you do not serve anybody by showing up, pushing through, grinding it out. That is not how you can be creative. So you do need to have some understanding of productivity and you definitely need a team to aid you because I would tell you all the best and most powerful things done in the history of time, especially business, were done in relaxation and moments of play because that's when the mind is most creative. So when you're just going over hurdles, trying to get to the next thing, go, 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 and I get it because I'm a recovering rushaholic. Oh my gosh, like I totally get it. It was years ago and everything was just a bloody rush. But when you're like that, you don't have the creative resources. You're reacting instead of creating.
So by the way, the tip you gave on calendar is so important. I hope everybody hears this. I literally book in like 15 minutes a day to text my kids because I just want to send, I love you, I'm thinking of you. Because if you don't, and you start doing that, you're like, wait, I thought I had all this day to complete this, but where did it go? And so I do but I'm OCD and I always tell people I'm the good OCD, like kind that people don't complain about. I get things done. I'm super organized, but I live by my calendar. I put everything, even my travel time. If I have an appointment, I guesstimate what my travel time is and I block it out in my calendar. And if I want to listen to a book or whatever in the car, I even put that good time to catch up on this book.
Now, may I add to that? Here's the problem. And I say this with warmth. People like you, 2 things happen. 1, you give it a bad name. And 2, I have clients who are like you. And then what happens is you think, let's say, because you're not keeping up with the work, and it's because you don't have the infrastructure and the team at play, but you think, I get so much done and I'm so organized. And if anybody I know, I get more done. And so then you try to reorganize yourself and just go tighter and tighter because you're not changing the infrastructure. So often I deal with really high achievers like yourself, and they're like, oh, I'm organized. Well, in fact, it's easier to work with someone who's not so organized because then they're open to it. Where when you're organized, you're just trying to spin it tighter and tighter. The other thing I would say to you, because you're organized, then people shut down and don't hear us talking anymore because they think, oh, who wants to talk to two organized? It's like looking at two really fit people at the gym. I don't want to hear about your exercise routine. You're done. You're fit, right? So what I would say to you is that's with Win the Hour, Win the Day, we do lean into that a fair bit more about productivity. And what I would say is I talk about 1 hour increments because what I don't want is people get overwhelmed with the idea of breaking their calendar down, and then that becomes a project, right? And breaking it down into all these increments. I would tell you when you're starting out, if you're really super highly efficient like you are, Jana, great. But otherwise, do it in 1 hour increments or it will overwhelm you. And even that 1 hour, what I would say is you do want to have a spot for your email. Your email should not take an hour. If it is, we've got another problem, we'll talk. But in that hour, it might say, okay, 30 minutes for email and then phone calls or these random things that are going to be in that hour. So I just wanted to pause there because that scares a lot of people when they hear someone of your level talking and they think, I can't get there. Well, what else can we listen to today, right?
I totally agree. By the way, my calendar is in 30 and 1 hour increments because that gives me time to use the restroom, to get up and move, right? To like walk away from it for a minute. So I love that you corrected me on that because absolutely that is really important. One of the other things that I want to talk about is your, so for me, passing that on to the right person, like building the right team, that's scary and hard because this is something I'm completely invested in. It's my brand, it's my voice, right? And I don't want to ever let people down. So finding people, by the way, I have great people now, but it took me years to get here. If people want to fast track and not take years, like what do you tell them to do?
Well, here's the thing. Again, it is not rocket science. But what took you years, also took me years, but I did it for years and then I documented it. And there's a whole science to creating systems. I've taken training and courses and read books, and I've worked with a lot of people now through group coaching and individual coaching. And we even have an info product, the outsourcing playbook for busy entrepreneurs. It's only open a couple of times a year. But what I would say to you is, this is where people get confused. Whatever it is, like let's say you're, somebody that coaches people how to be great on camera. That's how you started the business. And then what happens is that business starts to expand and expand. And so then you have this idea of these tasks or responsibilities that went from 1 thing to 5 things to 10 things. And you think, okay, now I need a little bit of help. So then you just think, oh, I'll get help and they'll come in because you feel like you were in control, like this grew like a crop. It went from 1 plant to 3 and okay, I need a little help. But really what's happening is it's going from a garden plant to a farm, and you need to have different equipment and a different strategy and stuff because now we're in production, right? And so there is a whole science to what I do and how to bring people on board and how to make them, not to be obedient employees, but thinkers and create a culture. So it's not difficult, but it isn't something I suggest trying to figure out at the end of the long day after you've spent all your energy on your zone of genius and then say, okay, I'll figure this out what Kris does full time somewhere between 7 and 9:30 p.m. So is it difficult? No, but I spent years perfecting it. So it is really easy. And I'll give you a quick example. When I first put my first job posting up, 9 years ago, I made it so complicated that Obama would not have fulfilled the job, right? Because I was trying to cover every base. And now in my courses, I can show you how I can write something like 3 sentences, and there's very strategic words and reasons I say certain things in those 3 sentences, and the quality of people I get is unbelievable. So is it difficult? No. Do I wish I could give you a pill and you'd have it all now? 100%, because I really truly want to create a movement where business is fun and it supports your life and not consumes it. So what I want you to understand is it's a whole thing on its own, and doing it, running out and getting somebody when you need somebody, that's not a good strategy. So it's not difficult, but if you're interested, please reach out. We've got this We're always putting goodies in www free gift, GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com, free gift from Kris, KRIS.com. We always have stuff there for your listeners, but it's not hard, but it is sequential, right? That part really matters.
So definitely we're going to put that link in the show notes for those of you who may not have caught it, because we want you going and getting free stuff. If you're building a business and you are not taking advantage of some incredible free offers from geniuses like this, that would be your first mistake. So definitely it's free. Go in there and start getting some of those resources to start building your zone of genius and letting other people step into theirs and help you. Kris, where can people connect with you?
Yeah, well, anywhere you connect, tell me you heard me on this fabulous podcast and we'll be instant friends. So, reach out to me on any of the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. And just, opt into freegiftfromkris.com and, then you'll get some emails from us afterwards, a few little other treats and stuff like that. So just reply. I'm really very quite accessible and really always eager to hear what you're up to, because it allows me to add more and more to what I do every day.
And you can grab her book.
Yes, you can get that on Amazon. Yes, you can.
And we'll put the link in there to the show notes.
Okay.
You guys can grab that book. Thank you so much, Kris. We really appreciate you coming. I was so excited to have you. So thank you.
Well, you're fabulous yourself. So I appreciate you sharing me with your lovely audience. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.